Commander Sarah Chun stood at attention in the center of the Galactic Council's grand chamber, her hands clasped behind her back as hundreds of alien eyes scrutinized her every movement. The massive dome overhead displayed swirling nebulae and distant stars, a reminder of the vast territories the Council governed. Representatives from 47 species filled the tiered seating that curved around the chamber like an amphitheater, their various forms creating a bizarre tapestry of evolution's creativity. At the highest tier sat the Council of Seven, the most influential species in known space. Each occupied a specialized throne designed for their unique physiology. The Zephyrians with their crystalline bodies that chimed softly when they moved, the towering Gorvok with their multiple arms and compound eyes, the ethereal Lumina whose forms seemed to shift between solid and energy, and others whose names Sarah had memorized during her journey to this moment. Human, spoke Counselor Thextar, a Gorvok whose mandibles clicked rhythmically as he formed words in Standard Galactic. You stand accused of fabricating your combat record to gain admission into the Galactic Defense Force. The evidence suggests that your species is incapable of the feats you claim to have accomplished. Sarah's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but her voice remained steady. With respect, Counselor, I have not fabricated anything. Every engagement, every mission, every casualty report has been documented according to GDF standards. A ripple of what might have been laughter echoed through the chamber from the Zephyrian section, their crystalline forms chiming in harmonic discord. Counselor Velthra, their representative, leaned forward. Perhaps the human does not understand the gravity of her situation. We are not questioning minor discrepancies, Commander Chin. We are suggesting that your entire species has engaged in deliberate deception to infiltrate our ranks. The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Sarah had expected this confrontation ever since humanity's rapid promotion through GDF ranks had raised eyebrows across the galaxy. In just 5 years since first contact, humans had gone from unknown primitives to holding positions of significant authority within the Defense Force. Their success rate in combat operations was unprecedented, their adaptability in crisis situations legendary, and their tactical innovations had revolutionized several branches of military doctrine. The Terran Federation's combat records show impossible statistics, continued Counselor Velthra, projecting holographic data into the chamber center. Numbers and charts materialized in the air, showing engagement ratios, survival rates, and mission success percentages that dwarfed those of any other species. No single species achieves a 97% mission success rate against Void Hunters. The Gorvok, our finest warriors, maintain only 63%. The Zephyrian Tactical Corps reaches 71%. Yet humans claim near-perfect success. Murmurs of agreement rumbled through the chamber. Sarah noticed how representatives leaned toward each other, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of suspicion. Tentacles writhed, antennae twitched, and energy fields fluctuated as dozens of species expressed their doubt. General Korvok, a massive Gorvok war veteran whose exoskeleton bore scars from countless battles, stood from his position in the military section. His 4 arms gestured emphatically as he spoke. I have fought Void Hunters for 3 decades. I have seen entire fleets consumed by their living ships. No species achieves such success rates against them. It is mathematically impossible. Unless, interjected Counselor Nixura, a shadow-like being whose form seemed to absorb light. The data has been manipulated. We propose that humanity has falsified their records to appear more capable than they truly are, seeking to gain technology and resources through deception. Sarah felt her heart rate increase, but her training kept her expression neutral. She had faced worse accusations during her career, though never on this scale. The fate of humanity's membership in the Galactic Council hung in the balance, along with access to technologies that could advance human civilization by centuries. These are serious charges, she said carefully. May I ask what evidence supports this accusation beyond statistical improbability? Counselor Thextar's compound eyes focused on her with unsettling intensity. The evidence is simple, human. Your species claims to have defeated a Void Hunter Leviathan with a single frigate. This creature measures over 2 kilometers in length, possesses adaptive armor that has withstood our most powerful weapons, and commands swarms of fighter organisms that have overwhelmed entire battle groups. Yet your report claims that the frigate Relentless destroyed such a creature with minimal damage. That is correct, Sarah replied without hesitation. Impossible, declared General Korvac. I commanded a fleet of 12 dreadnoughts against a Leviathan. We lost 4 ships before driving it off. It was not even destroyed, merely wounded enough to retreat. Your frigate weighs less than one of our escort corvettes. The chamber erupted in voices as representatives expressed their disbelief. Sarah waited for the noise to subside before responding. General, with respect, tactics matter more than tonnage. The Relentless succeeded because Captain Morrison understood something about Void Hunters that larger fleets often miss. And what is that? Demanded Counselor Velthera, their crystalline form chiming with skepticism. They're living creatures, Sarah said simply. Not ships with biological components, but actual organisms with biological vulnerabilities. Captain Morrison targeted the neural clusters rather than trying to penetrate the armor. A precisely placed plasma charge can be far more effective than a heavy bombardment. Neural clusters? General Korvac's mandibles clicked rapidly. Our xenobiologists have studied Void Hunter anatomy for decades. They show no centralized nervous system. Sarah nodded. That's correct for the smaller variants. But Leviathans are different. They're not evolved Void Hunters. They're artificially enhanced, possibly created by whatever intelligence controls the swarms. The enhancement process requires neural integration points to maintain control over such massive organisms. Captain Morrison identified these points through behavioral analysis during the early stages of the engagement. Behavioral analysis? This came from Dr. Yithkovar, a cephalopod-like being who served as the Council's chief xenobiologist. You claim to understand Void Hunter behavior better than our research teams. Not better, Sarah corrected. Differently. Human military doctrine emphasizes adaptability and pattern recognition. We excel at reading enemy behavior and exploiting weaknesses that might not be apparent through conventional analysis. Counselor Nixera's form seemed to darken further. You speak of these abilities as if they are unique to your species. Every civilization develops military doctrine. Every species studies their enemies. Yet none achieve your claimed success rates. Sarah took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would either vindicate humanity or condemn them. Counselor, you're correct that every species develops military doctrine. But human doctrine is fundamentally different because it evolved under unique circumstances. Explain, commanded Counselor Thextar. For our entire history, humans have fought only humans, Sarah began. We've had no external threats to unite against, no common enemy to focus our military development. Instead, we've spent millennia perfecting the art of warfare against opponents who think exactly like us. Every strategy we developed had to account for enemies who could anticipate our moves, who shared our strengths and weaknesses, who could adapt to our tactics in real time. The chamber had grown quiet, representatives leaning forward to hear her words. When you fight an enemy who thinks like you do, conventional approaches fail quickly. You must become unpredictable, innovative, willing to sacrifice efficiency for surprise. You must learn to read micro-expressions, to identify patterns in behavior so subtle that even your opponent doesn't realize they exist. Most importantly, you must be able to change your entire approach mid-battle when your enemy adapts to your strategy. She gestured to the assembled representatives. Your species developed military doctrine against external threats, wildlife, natural disasters, occasionally other species. But you've rarely faced opponents with equivalent intelligence who shared your thought processes. When the Gorvok fight, they rely on superior armor and weaponry because these advantages have served them well against their traditional enemies. When the Zephyrians engage, they They use their energy manipulation abilities because few opponents can counter them effectively. General Korvac's scarred exoskeleton reflected the chamber's lights as he shifted uncomfortably. You suggest our methods are inferior? Not inferior, Sarah said carefully. Specialized. Effective against the threats they were designed to counter. But Void Hunters are different. They adapt, they learn, they evolve their tactics mid-engagement. Fighting them with conventional military doctrine is like bringing a sword to a chess match. And humans are naturally suited to this type of warfare. Asked Dr. Yithkovar, their tentacles writhing with curiosity. We're suited to it because we created it, Sarah replied. Every major human military victory in our history came from doing something the enemy didn't expect. We've never been the strongest, the fastest, or the most technologically advanced. We've survived by being unpredictable. Counselor Velthraz's chiming grew more discordant. Even accepting your explanation, the statistical variance is too extreme. A 30% increase in effectiveness might be plausible. But your records show humans performing at levels that exceed our best predictions by factors of 3 or 4. Sarah nodded. You're analyzing our performance through the lens of your own military experience. But there's another factor you haven't considered, which is unit cohesion, Sarah said. Human military units don't just fight together, they think together. We form bonds that go beyond simple cooperation. A human squad becomes a collective intelligence that's greater than the sum of its parts. Other species form military bonds, protested General Korvac. Yes, but not like humans do, Sarah explained. Most species bond through shared experience or common purpose. Humans bond through shared suffering. When a human unit faces impossible odds, when they're outgunned and outnumbered, and the smart choice is to retreat, something happens that our psychologists call pack solidarity. The unit stops being individuals working together and becomes a single organism with multiple bodies. She paused, choosing her words carefully. In our reports from the Battle of Kepler Station, Lieutenant Rodriguez held a choke point against 40 Void Hunter soldiers for 18 minutes while his team evacuated civilians. By all tactical analysis, he should have been overwhelmed in the first 30 seconds. But his squad mates could see him through the security feeds, and he could hear their voices on the comm. He wasn't fighting alone. He was fighting as the spear point of a weapon wielded by 6 minds working in perfect synchronization. This is pure mythology, declared Counselor Nixera. You cannot prove such claims. Actually, we can, Sarah replied calmly. Every human soldier carries biometric sensors that monitor brain activity, heart rate, hormone levels, and neural connectivity. During peak combat operations, human units show synchronized brain wave patterns that our xenopsychologists have never observed in any other species. We literally think as one organism when the stakes are high enough. The chamber erupted again, but this time the voices carried a different tone. Not skepticism, but unease. Sarah had touched on something that made the alien representatives deeply uncomfortable. Dr. Yithkovar's tentacles had stopped writhing entirely. You're describing a form of combat telepathy. Not telepathy, Sarah corrected. Empathy. Evolved to such an extreme degree that the line between individual consciousness and collective awareness becomes blurred. It's not supernatural. It's biology pushed to its absolute limits by evolutionary pressure. And this is why your frigate defeated a Leviathan, asked Counselor Thextar, his voice quieter now. The Relentless had a crew of 23 humans, Sarah explained. By the time they engaged the Leviathan, they had been together for 8 months in deep space. They weren't 23 individuals operating a ship. They were a single predator with 23 brain centers and one shared purpose. When Captain Morrison identified the neural clusters, every crew member understood the plan instantly, without need for detailed orders. When Lieutenant Hayes piloted them through the Leviathan's defensive swarm, he wasn't relying on his own reflexes. He was drawing on the collective spatial awareness of every crew member simultaneously. The silence that followed was broken only by the subtle sounds of alien physiology, crystalline chiming, mandible clicking, the whisper of energy fields. Sarah could feel the weight of their attention, the careful reassessment taking place behind hundreds of different types of eyes. Finally, Counselor Velthros spoke. If what you claim is true, then humans represent something unprecedented in galactic civilization. Yes, Sarah agreed. We do. Something potentially dangerous, added Counselor Nixera. Sarah met the shadow being's attention directly. Every military capability is potentially dangerous, Counselor. The question is whether it serves the greater good. And you believe human capabilities serve our collective interests? I believe, Sarah said carefully, that the Void Hunter threat requires capabilities that conventional military doctrine cannot provide. Our statistical anomalies exist because we're fighting an enemy that conventional forces simply cannot match effectively. You can continue to question our methods, or you can accept that sometimes the impossible is just the improbable approach from the right angle. The tension in the chamber was thick enough to cut with a blade as Counselor Thextar consulted with his fellow council members through their private communication channels. Sarah watched as gestures, light patterns, and electromagnetic pulses passed between the 7 leaders, a multilingual discussion that excluded every other being in the room. Finally, General Korvac rose from his position. His massive frame dominated the military section as he activated his own projection system. Commander Chun, you speak eloquently about human capabilities, but words are not proof. These combat reports could still be fabricated, regardless of how convincingly you explain them. Sarah nodded. What would you consider adequate proof, General? The Gorvok warrior's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. A demonstration. Real combat conditions against a verified threat. If humans truly possess these remarkable abilities, they should be able to demonstrate them under observation. You're suggesting a test? Asked Counselor Velthra. I am suggesting verification, Korvac replied. 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected a Void Hunter pack moving through the Helix sector. 27 ships, including 2 Leviathans. The sector contains 3 inhabited systems with a combined population of 14 billion beings. Our fleet estimates show that stopping this incursion will require no fewer than 40 capital ships and supporting elements. Sarah felt her heart rate spike. And you want to send humans against this force as a test? I want to send humans as part of the fleet action, Korvac corrected. If your claims are accurate, human units should perform significantly better than predicted. If they are fabrications, the truth will become evident quickly enough. Counselor Nixera's form seemed to pulse with dark energy. This proposal has merit. Combat cannot be falsified. Either humans perform as their records indicate, or they do not. Dr. Yithkovar raised several tentacles in what Sarah recognized as a gesture of concern. Surely we cannot base such an important decision on a single engagement. The variables in combat are too numerous, which is precisely why it provides the clearest test, interrupted Counselor Thextar. Commander Chun, would humanity accept such a verification protocol? Sarah's mind raced through the implications. A major fleet engagement against Void Hunters would be incredibly dangerous, but it would also provide the definitive proof that the Council demanded. If humans performed as expected, their place in galactic society would be secured. If they failed, the consequences would extend far beyond mere embarrassment. I would need to consult with Fleet Command, she said carefully. But I believe humanity would accept such a test, provided the engagement parameters are fair. Fair. General Korvac's compound eyes fixed on her. You would negotiate the terms of your own verification? I would ensure that the test actually measures what you claim to be testing, Sarah replied firmly. If you place human units in impossible situations or assign missions that play to our weaknesses rather than our strengths, the results won't prove anything except that you can engineer our failure. Counselor Velthra's crystalline form chimed with what might have been approval. A reasonable position. What parameters would humanity require? Sarah took a moment to consider her response. First, human units must be allowed to operate with their normal command structure intact. The collective awareness I described requires established trust relationships that cannot be replicated with ad hoc assignments. Second, human ships must be permitted to choose their own tactical approaches rather than being locked into predetermined fleet formations. Innovation is our primary advantage. Restricting it defeats the purpose of the test. And third, prompted Counselor Thextar, the engagement must serve a legitimate military purpose. If we're risking lives to prove a point, those lives must be spent protecting others, not simply satisfying the Council's curiosity. General Korvak's scarred exoskeleton reflected the chamber's lights as he leaned forward. The Helix Sector engagement serves that purpose, Commander. 14 billion lives hang in the balance. This is not mere curiosity. It is a desperate attempt to determine whether humanity represents a military asset significant enough to alter our strategic calculations. Sarah felt a chill at the implications behind his words. Alter them how, General? The Void Hunter threat grows stronger each year, Korvak explained. Their ships adapt faster than we can develop new weapons. Their tactics evolve beyond our ability to counter them. Current projections show that within 50 years, they will possess the capability to threaten core Council worlds directly. If humanity truly possesses military capabilities that can change these projections, the Council needs to know immediately. And if we don't? Sarah asked quietly. The silence that followed was answer enough. If humans failed to demonstrate exceptional capability, they would be deemed a strategic liability rather than an asset. Their membership in the Galactic Council would be terminated, their access to advanced technology revoked, and their homeworld would be left to face whatever threats emerged without support. Dr. Yithkovar's tentacles writhed with visible distress. Surely such extreme measures are premature. Humanity has been part of the galactic community for only 5 years. 5 years during which they have claimed capabilities that could revolutionize our defensive strategies, Counselor Nixera interjected. If these claims are false, we have wasted valuable time and resources. If they are true, we have underutilized humanity's potential. Either situation demands immediate resolution. Sarah realized that the test was not really about proving human capability. It was about determining humanity's role in a larger galactic conflict. Success would elevate humans to a position of significant strategic importance. Failure would result in their expulsion from galactic civilization. I understand the stakes, she said finally, but I want to be absolutely clear about something before I respond. You're not just questioning our combat records. You're questioning whether humanity deserves to exist as part of galactic civilization. Counselor Thextar's mandibles clicked rapidly. That is a dramatic interpretation of our position. Is it incorrect? Sarah challenged. The Gorvat counselor's compound eyes regarded her for a long moment before he responded. No, it is not incorrect. Sarah felt a surge of anger, but her training kept it from reaching her expression. Then, let me be equally direct in my response. Humanity accepts your test, but with one modification to the terms. You are hardly in a position to negotiate modifications, observed Counselor Velthra. Actually, I am, Sarah replied calmly, because you need this test more than we do. If you genuinely believe our combat records are fabricated, then you also believe that 14 billion beings in the Helix Sector are about to die because you don't have sufficient forces to stop the Void Hunter incursion. You're hoping that human capabilities are real because you're desperate for any advantage you can find. The chamber erupted in voices as representatives protested her blunt assessment. Sarah waited for the noise to subside before continuing. My modification is simple. If human forces perform as our records indicate, the Council will issue a formal apology for questioning our integrity and will guarantee humanity's membership in galactic civilization for a minimum of 100 years. If we fail to perform as indicated, humanity will voluntarily withdraw from the Council and accept whatever consequences you deem appropriate. General Korvak's scarred exoskeleton creaked as he shifted position. You would stake your entire species' future on a single engagement. We're already staking it on this engagement, Sarah pointed out. I'm simply making the terms explicit rather than leaving them to interpretation afterward. Counselor Nixera's shadowy form seemed to pulse with consideration. The modification has merit. It eliminates ambiguity about the consequences of the test. It also demonstrates remarkable confidence in human capabilities, added Dr. Yithkovar. Unless Commander Chan believes her species has no choice but to accept these terms. Sarah met the xenobiologist's attention directly. Dr. Yithkovar, humanity learned long ago that confidence and desperation often look identical from the outside. The distinction lies in preparation and capability. We are prepared for this test because we know exactly what we are capable of achieving. And what is that? Asked Counselor Thextar. Victory, Sarah replied simply. Not because we're stronger or faster or more technologically advanced than our enemies, but because we refuse to accept defeat as long as alternatives exist. Human military history is filled with impossible victories achieved by people who simply would not surrender when logic said they should. Logic suggests surrender when the alternative is annihilation, observed Counselor Velthra. Human logic suggests that annihilation and surrender lead to the same outcome, Sarah countered. The only difference is whether you die with dignity or without it. Given that choice, humans invariably choose dignity. General Korvok's mandibles clicked with what might have been approval. A warrior's philosophy. I can respect that, even if I question its practical application. General, practical application is exactly what this test will demonstrate, Sarah said. When the Void Hunters reach the Helix sector, they'll encounter human units that have been preparing for this moment their entire careers. They'll face opponents who have trained to think collectively, to adapt instantly, to turn desperate situations into tactical advantages. Most importantly, they'll face beings who would rather die fighting than live in surrender. And if this warrior spirit proves insufficient against superior numbers and firepower, asked Counselor Nixera. Sarah's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. Counselor, in the entire history of human warfare, superior numbers and firepower have never been sufficient to guarantee victory against properly motivated human forces. We've been defeating larger, better-equipped enemies for millennia. The only difference now is that our enemies aren't human. The chamber fell silent as her words sank in. Sarah could see the alien representatives processing the implications of what she had said, not just about human capabilities, but about the fundamental nature of human warfare. They were beginning to understand that humans didn't fight the way other species fought, didn't think the way other species thought, didn't react to impossible odds the way other species reacted. Finally, Counselor Thextar spoke. Commander Chun, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally accept your modified terms. Human forces will participate in the Helix sector engagement under their preferred operational parameters. Their performance will be evaluated against the standards established by their historical combat records. If they meet these standards, humanity's position in galactic civilization will be formally guaranteed. If they fail to meet these standards, humanity will withdraw voluntarily from the Council. Agreed, Sarah replied without hesitation. The engagement will commence in 72 hours, General Korvok announced. Human forces should begin deployment immediately. Sarah nodded. General, our forces are already en route. We've been tracking the Void Hunter incursion since it entered monitored space. The Korvok warrior's compound eyes focused on her with sudden intensity. You were confident the Council would approve this test. We were confident the Council would need us, Sarah corrected. Whether they approved of us was always secondary to whether they required our capabilities. The test simply makes the relationship explicit. And if you've been wrong about our need, asked Dr. Yithkovar. Sarah's expression became deadly serious. Doctor, we weren't wrong. The Void Hunters are coming. Your conventional forces can't stop them, and humanity represents your best hope of changing that equation. This test isn't about proving human capabilities. It's about determining whether galactic civilization will accept the help it desperately needs. Help! Counselor Velthra's crystalline form chimed with surprise. You consider this help rather than self-preservation? Counselor, 14 billion beings are about to die unless someone stops the Void Hunters, Sarah replied. From a human perspective, the motivation matters less than the outcome. Whether we're fighting to preserve our membership in the Council or fighting to save innocent lives, the Void Hunters still need to be destroyed. A pragmatic philosophy, observed Counselor Nixera. A human philosophy, Sarah corrected. We've learned that principles matter less than results when lives are at stake. The Helix Sector engagement will demonstrate what humans can accomplish when results are all that matter. 71 hours later, Commander Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the battlecruiser Indomitable, watching the tactical display as the largest fleet engagement in recent galactic history unfolded before her. The combined Council fleet consisted of 43 capital ships, 112 escorts, and support vessels from 7 different species. Against them, the Void Hunter pack had grown to 31 ships, including 3 Leviathans that dwarfed even the largest Council dreadnoughts. The Helix Sector stretched around them like a vast arena, its asteroid fields and gas giants providing cover for both fleets as they maneuvered for advantage. 3 inhabited systems lay directly in the Void Hunter's path, their combined populations watching the skies with mounting terror as the alien armada approached their worlds. Human contingent reports ready for deployment, announced Lieutenant Commander Torres from the communication station. Admiral Reyes is requesting final operational parameters. Sarah studied the fleet disposition with satisfaction. The Council had assigned 21 ships to human command, a significant force, but one that represented less than 15% of the total fleet strength. The alien commanders clearly expected human units to perform adequately, but not exceptionally. They were about to learn why that assumption was dangerously incorrect. Tell Admiral Reyes he has full tactical autonomy, Sarah ordered. Human forces will engage according to Doctrine 77 Alpha. Ma'am, Torres hesitated, Doctrine 77 Alpha isn't in our official tactical manual. No, Sarah agreed. It isn't. On the main display, the Void Hunter fleet had begun its final approach toward the first inhabited system. Their ships moved with the fluid grace of living creatures, which in many ways they were. Void Hunter technology blurred the line between organism and machine, creating vessels that could adapt and evolve mid-battle in ways that conventional ships could never match. General Korvac's voice crackled over the command frequency from his flagship, the massive dreadnought unyielding. All units, this is Fleet Command. The enemy has committed to their attack vector. Execute Battle Plan Gamma. Human forces will provide escort support for the main battle line. Sarah smiled grimly as she opened a private channel to Admiral Reyes aboard the human flagship Defiant. Admiral, you heard the General's orders. Understood, Commander, came Reyes' calm reply. Human forces moving to escort positions as ordered. Doctrine 77 Alpha is now in effect. Sarah watched as the human ships began to move, ostensibly taking up positions to protect the larger alien vessels from Void Hunter fighter swarms. But their actual formation told a different story to anyone who understood human tactical doctrine. The 21 human vessels were positioning themselves not as escorts, but as the spear point of a formation that could strike directly at the Void Hunter command structure. Enemy fleet entering weapons range, reported the tactical officer. Void Hunters are deploying fighter screens. Count shows, ma'am. That's impossible. Report, Sarah ordered. Sensor readings indicate over 4,000 individual fighter craft. Our intelligence estimates suggested a maximum of 1,500 based on the number of capital ships. Sarah nodded. The Void Hunters have been busy. They've been breeding new fighters during their approach vector. Standard tactical response. Fall back to long range and engage with capital ship weapons until the fighter advantage is neutralized, the tactical officer replied. General Korvac's orders? Sarah prompted. All ships maintain formation and engage as planned. Fighter screens will handle the small craft. Sarah could see the disaster unfolding before it happened. The Council's fighter squadrons, designed to operate in small, precise formations, would be overwhelmed by the sheer number of Void Hunter craft. Within minutes, the larger ships would be swarmed by enemies too small and numerous for their heavy weapons to target effectively. "Commander," Torres announced, "Admiral Reyes is requesting permission to implement emergency protocols." "Granted," Sarah replied immediately. On the tactical display, the human formation suddenly exploded into motion. Instead of maintaining their escort positions, the 21 ships scattered across the battlefield like seeds in the wind. But their movement wasn't random. It was a coordinated dispersal that created overlapping fields of fire while maintaining communication links and mutual support patterns. General Korvac's voice boomed over the command frequency. "Human units, return to formation immediately. You are compromising the battle plan." "Negative, Fleet Command," Admiral Reyes replied calmly. "Human forces are implementing contingency protocols for overwhelming fighter opposition. We will engage the enemy as tactically appropriate." Sarah could imagine the chaos on the alien flagships as their commanders tried to process what was happening. From their perspective, the human ships had broken formation and were now operating independently in apparent violation of all military discipline. They couldn't understand that the human vessels weren't operating independently at all. They were functioning as a single distributed organism with 21 bodies and one shared consciousness. The Void Hunter fighters reached the Council fleet like a wave of death. Thousands of organic craft swarmed around the larger ships, their bioweapons tearing through shields and armor with horrifying efficiency. The alien fighter squadrons, overwhelmed by sheer numbers, began to fall back toward their capital ships. But the human ships were moving differently. Instead of trying to protect fixed positions, they flowed through the battlefield like a school of predatory fish. Each vessel knew exactly where every other human ship was located, could anticipate their movements without communication delays, and could coordinate attacks with a precision that defied conventional tactical analysis. "Look at this," breathed the tactical officer, highlighting a section of the display. 3 human destroyers just executed a synchronized attack run against a Void Hunter carrier. They moved through the fighter screen without taking a single hit, delivered their ordnance simultaneously, and extracted before the enemy could respond. Sarah watched with professional appreciation as the engagement unfolded. The human ships weren't fighting a traditional battle. They were hunting. Each group of vessels identified targets, coordinated approaches, and struck with surgical precision before disappearing back into the chaos of the battlefield. They moved like wolves among sheep, their attacks so swift and coordinated that the Void Hunters couldn't mount effective counterattacks. "Commander Chun," General Korvac's voice carried a tone of barely controlled anger. "Order your ships to return to formation. Their unauthorized actions are creating gaps in our defensive line." "General," Sarah replied politely, "human forces are engaging the enemy most effectively according to their training and capabilities. Perhaps you should adjust your formation to account for their operational style rather than forcing them to conform to tactics they weren't designed for." "This is not a request, Commander. This is a direct order from Fleet Command." Sarah looked at the tactical display, where human ships were systematically dismantling the Void Hunter fighter screen, while the alien capital ships struggled against overwhelming numbers. "General, with respect, your orders are tactically unsound given current battlefield conditions. Human forces will continue to engage according to their best judgment." The communication channel erupted with protests from alien commanders, but Sarah ignored them. Her attention was focused on the larger pattern of the battle, where something unprecedented was beginning to happen. The Void Hunter fleet, which had maintained perfect coordination throughout their approach, was starting to show signs of confusion. Their fighter craft, bred to overwhelm enemies through sheer numbers, were being systematically eliminated by human ships that refused to fight on their terms. Worse, the distributed nature of a human attack was making it impossible for the Void Hunters to identify and target the most dangerous threats. "Admiral Reyes," Sarah opened a private channel. "Are you seeing what I'm seeing? The Void Hunters are trying to adapt their formation to counter our tactics," came the reply. but they can't process our movement patterns fast enough. They're designed to fight conventional fleets, not this. Time to show them what Doctrine 77 Alpha really means, Sarah said. Understood. All human units, implement Phase 2. Target priority is now Leviathan command structures. On the tactical display, the human formation underwent another transformation. The scattered ships suddenly converged into 3 groups, each one moving directly toward one of the massive Void Hunter Leviathans. But their approach wasn't the head-on assault that conventional tactics would dictate. Instead, they moved like sharks, circling wounded prey, looking for the perfect moment to strike. "What are they doing?" demanded Dr. Yithkovar from his position on the Council's observation vessel. "Those Leviathans are protected by overlapping shield matrices and point defense systems. A direct assault is suicide." Sarah smiled. "Doctor, human military doctrine has a saying. If you're not confused by your own battle plan, your enemy probably isn't either. We're about to demonstrate what that means in practical terms." The first group of human ships reached the nearest Leviathan and immediately dispersed again, but this time their pattern was different. Instead of maintaining distance, they dove directly into the creature's defensive perimeter, using their superior maneuverability to stay ahead of its massive weapons, while their smaller guns targeted specific points on its bioarmor. "They're not trying to destroy it," observed the tactical officer with sudden understanding. "They're performing surgery." "Exactly," Sarah confirmed. "The Leviathan's nervous system has specific vulnerabilities that only become accessible when its defensive posture is disrupted. Human forces are creating those disruptions." On the display, the massive Void Hunter creature began to show signs of distress. Its movements became erratic, its fire control less precise. The human ships continued their precise attacks, each strike targeting nerve clusters and neural pathways with surgical accuracy. Then, something remarkable happened. The Leviathan's bioarmor began to retract, exposing the creature's internal structures as its nervous system went into protective shutdown. The human ships immediately recognized the opportunity and concentrated their fire on the exposed command centers. The destruction of the first Leviathan sent shockwaves through both fleets. The Council ships had been struggling to damage similar creatures for decades, yet the humans had eliminated one in less than 20 minutes of concentrated assault. "Impossible," breathed General Korvac. "Our xenobiologists insisted that Leviathan neural structures were too well protected to target directly." "Your xenobiologists were correct," Sarah replied. "The structures are too well protected to target directly, but they're not protected against indirect neural disruption that forces the creature to expose them voluntarily." "How did you know such a technique would work?" Sarah's expression became grim. "General, humans spent thousands of years learning how to kill things that were bigger and stronger than we were. We became very good at finding ways to make size and strength into disadvantages rather than advantages. The second and third Leviathans fell within the next hour, each one succumbing to the same neural disruption tactics that had doomed the first. With their command creatures dead, the remaining Void Hunter ships began to show signs of confusion and disorganization. Their perfect coordination deteriorated into chaotic individual actions that made them vulnerable to conventional Council fleet tactics. General Korvac's voice over the command frequency sounded stunned. "All units, the enemy fleet is in retreat. Pursue and destroy remaining vessels according to standard protocols." But Sarah was watching something else on the tactical display. "Admiral Reyes, are you tracking the withdrawal pattern?" "Confirmed. The Void Hunters aren't retreating randomly. They're moving toward the asteroid field in Grid 7 Alpha." "Thoughts?" "They're regrouping for second assault, probably calling for reinforcements while they reorganize their remaining forces." Sarah nodded. "Standard Council response? Pursue immediately and prevent them from establishing a defensive position in the asteroids." "Your assessment?" "It's a trap," Admiral Reyes replied without hesitation. "The withdrawal is too organized, too purposeful. They want us to follow them into that asteroid field. Sarah opened a channel to General Korvac. Fleet Command, this is Commander Chun. I recommend against immediate pursuit of the retreating Void Hunters. Explain your reasoning, came the curt reply. The withdrawal pattern suggests they're attempting to draw us into a prepared ambush position. Standard tactical response would be to maintain position and conduct long-range reconnaissance before committing to pursuit. Our tactical analysis indicates that immediate pursuit is essential to prevent enemy reorganization, General Korvac replied. The fleet will advance into the asteroid field within 10 minutes. Sarah exchanged a look with her bridge crew. General, I strongly advise against this course of action. Your advice is noted and rejected, Commander. Human forces will conform to fleet movement or be classified as insubordinate. Sarah made a decision that would later be studied in military academies across the galaxy. Admiral Reyes, human forces will not advance into the asteroid field. Maintain current position and prepare for defensive operations. Commander Chun, General Korvac's voice carried deadly menace. You are directly violating fleet orders. Yes, I am, Sarah replied calmly. And in approximately 15 minutes, you're going to understand why. The Council fleet advanced into the asteroid field in perfect formation, their sensors sweeping for any sign of the retreating Void Hunters. For 12 minutes, nothing happened. Then the trap was sprung. The asteroids weren't asteroids at all. They were camouflaged Void Hunter vessels, possibly left behind from an earlier incursion. As the Council fleet moved deeper into the field, they found themselves surrounded by enemies that had been lying dormant, waiting for exactly this opportunity. All units, emergency scatter. General Korvac's voice crackled with panic as his fleet realized their mistake. We are surrounded. Repeat, we are surrounded. But it was too late for most of the alien ships. Caught in tight formation in the middle of a carefully prepared kill zone, they had no room to maneuver and no time to adapt their tactics. The Void Hunter ambush was perfectly executed, and conventional military doctrine provided no effective response. Sarah watched the slaughter unfold for exactly 30 seconds before making her next decision. Admiral Reyes, implement Doctrine 77 Alpha, Phase 3. All human units, emergency intervention. Ma'am, Lieutenant Commander Torres looked confused. We're outnumbered 8-1 in that asteroid field. Yes, Sarah agreed, which means they won't be expecting us. The 21 human ships accelerated toward the trap like avenging angels. But instead of charging directly into the kill zone, they used the asteroids themselves as cover, weaving between the false rocks while their sensors identified which ones were actually enemy vessels. What followed was perhaps the most audacious rescue operation in galactic military history. Human ships darted between Council vessels and their attackers, using their superior maneuverability to break up Void Hunter attack formations and create escape corridors for the trapped alien ships. They fought not as individual vessels, but as a single flowing organism that could be everywhere at once. How are they doing this? Dr. Yithkovar's voice was filled with wonder and terror. The tactical complexity should be impossible to coordinate in real time. Sarah watched as 3 human destroyers executed a synchronized attack that eliminated 5 Void Hunter vessels in less than 10 seconds, clearing a path for a damaged Council dreadnought to escape the kill zone. Doctor, you're still thinking about this as coordination. It's not coordination, it's instinct. Those 21 ships aren't following orders or executing plans. They're reacting to threats the way a single organism reacts to injury. That's impossible, protested General Korvac, whose own flagship was being escorted to safety by a pair of human frigates. Individual units cannot achieve such tactical integration without advanced AI systems. You're right, Sarah replied. Individual units can't. But human units aren't individual when the stakes are high enough. They become part of something larger than themselves. The rescue operation succeeded beyond all reasonable expectations. Within 47 minutes, every surviving Council ship had been extracted from the kill zone, and the Void Hunter ambush force had been completely eliminated. The cost was 3 human vessels destroyed and 7 damaged, losses that were almost miraculously light given the tactical situation they had faced. As the combined fleet regrouped outside the asteroid field, Sarah realized that the test was over. The human ships had performed exactly as their combat records indicated they would, achieving impossible victories through tactics that defied conventional analysis and coordination that bordered on the supernatural. General Korvac's voice over the command frequency was subdued when he finally spoke. "Commander Chun, please report to the flagship for debriefing at your earliest convenience." "Understood, General," Sarah replied. "Will this debriefing address the Council's concerns about human combat capabilities?" There was a long pause before Korvac responded. "Commander, the Council's concerns have been conclusively addressed." 3 hours later, Sarah stood once again in the Galactic Council chamber, but the atmosphere was completely different. The alien representatives no longer looked at her with suspicion or skepticism. Instead, their various forms of attention carried a mixture of awe, respect, and, in some cases, carefully controlled fear. Counselor Thextar spoke first, his mandibles clicking slowly as he chose his words with obvious care. "Commander Chun, the Council has reviewed the complete tactical records from the Helix sector engagement. Your species' combat capabilities have been verified." "Thank you, Counselor," Sarah replied formally. "The question now," continued Thextar, "is what role humanity should play in galactic defense going forward. Your demonstrated abilities suggest that human military doctrine could revolutionize our approach to the Void Hunter threat." Sarah nodded. "Humanity is prepared to share our tactical innovations with the Galactic Defense Force, subject to appropriate security protocols and command authority arrangements." "Command authority?" General Korvac's scarred exoskeleton reflected the chamber's lights as he leaned forward. "You would require operational command over non-human forces?" "In specific tactical situations, yes," Sarah confirmed. "Human military effectiveness depends on tactical flexibility and rapid adaptation. These capabilities cannot be fully utilized within rigid command hierarchies or predetermined battle plans." Counselor Velfra's crystalline form chimed thoughtfully. "You are requesting significant autonomy within the broader fleet structure." "I am requesting the authority necessary to employ human capabilities effectively," Sarah corrected. "If you want us to fight like humans, you need to let us fight like humans." "And if the Council grants such authority?" asked Counselor Nixera. Sarah's smile was sharp and confident. "Then, the Void Hunter threat becomes manageable rather than existential. Human military doctrine excels at turning superior enemy forces into tactical disadvantages. Give us the operational freedom to do what we do best, and the galaxy will discover that even impossible odds can be overcome with the right approach." The Council chamber fell silent as her words sank in. Sarah could see the alien representatives processing the implications, not just of human military capability, but of what humanity's integration into galactic defense could achieve. Finally, Counselor Thextar spoke. "Commander Chun, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally apologize for questioning humanity's integrity and combat record. The evidence of your species' capabilities is now beyond dispute." "Accepted, Counselor," Sarah replied graciously. Furthermore, Thextar continued, "The Council hereby grants humanity full military autonomy within the Galactic Defense Force, including operational command authority over mixed-species forces when tactical situations warrant such measures. Humanity's membership in galactic civilization is confirmed and guaranteed for a minimum of 100 years, as previously agreed." Sarah felt a surge of satisfaction, but kept her expression neutral. The Terran Federation accepts these terms and looks forward to a long and productive relationship with the Galactic Council. "Indeed," said Thextar, "though I suspect that after today's demonstration, it will be the Council looking to humanity for guidance rather than the reverse." As Sarah left the chamber for the final time, she reflected on the long journey that had brought humanity to this moment. from unknown primitives to essential partners in galactic defense in less than 6 years. It was a transformation that would have been impossible without the unique characteristics that made humans so effective in combat. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity had always known, that victory belonged not to the strongest or the smartest, but to those who refused to accept defeat as an option. The Void Hunters were about to face an enemy unlike any they had encountered before, one that became more dangerous when the odds were against them, more unified when facing impossible challenges, and more innovative when conventional tactics failed. The age of human warfare among the stars had officially begun.